Now, what are the various chambers of human digestive system, children?
Ma'am, mouth, buccal cavity,
Mouth, buccal
esophagus, stomach,
cavity,
small
So
stomach, small
intestine,
opening
intestine,
large
is
large.
intestine.
mouth. Where does it lead to? That would become the first ever chamber of digestive system. So mouth leads to buccal cavity, right? Now,
Yes, ma'am.
buccal cavity is that chamber where physical breaking down and chemical digestion of the food begins. So there should be certain particular structures, specialized structures present in this chamber. So we are going to familiarize ourselves with whatever is present in the buccal cavity and how they start the digestion process in the buccal cavity. But before that, certain concepts must be learned by you. For example, optimum pH, polypeptides, final or partial digestion. So we are taking a break over here. Let us move through those topics first. So when I say optimum pH
Ma'am, it means
of
that suitable pH in which the
enzyme,
enzymes act.
what does it mean? Can anybody tell me what is the optimum pH of any enzyme? Anyone?
Ma'am, the pH which
Ma'am,
is
the normal
used by
pH
the
in which the
enzymes
enzyme acts.
to work the functions which are provided to them.
Please say it again. I couldn't hear you. Please say it again.
Ma'am, optimum enzymes means that ma'am, they are the range optimum pH means this is a range of pH in which the enzymes can work. Means for example, this enzyme ma'am, for example, the optimum pH is 6.7 of
No,
saliva.
optimum pH is not that range. Optimum pH is that particular pH at which the enzyme is most active. In the range, within that range, the enzyme will be working. But if it is, this is the point of optimum pH, then towards the alkaline side or towards the acidic side, as you will move, the activity of enzyme is going to decrease, and after crossing a certain pH range, the enzyme will be totally non-functional. So it is functional in this range, but optimum pH is that particular pH at which any particular enzyme is most active, and this pH changes for each and every enzyme, because you know children, our biological system has different pH in different sections, and digestive system, it has altogether different pH running from the buccal cavity to the stomach to the small intestine. Everywhere there are drastic changes in the pH. So those enzymes which have to work in those chambers are actually evolved, or they are modified in a way that they need that pH to be active. Now, if you have learned this concept, please remember that, because this is going to be useful when we start talking about various secretions of the digestive chambers. Now, my second important point is, what is partial or complete digestion? Partial or
Ma'am,
complete digestion? Yes?
Ma'am, partial
Ma'am,
digestion is the digestion in which the food is halfly digested or it is not in the fully digested stage. And complete digestion is the state in which it's completely digested, all the nutrients are absorbed from it.
Yes, so I just need you to know that what are going to be the completely digested products of every kind of food that we consume, and what is going to be the partially digested status. So if I say that आपने चपाती खाई है, चपाती या चावल ऐसे कार्बोहाइड्रेट रिच फूड अगर आप खा रहे हैं, so carbohydrates, its finally and completely digested status will give you glucose. Glucose is a monosaccharide, which means made up of single unit of saccharide, while carbohydrates can be very complex. They are polysaccharides, very big and large structures. So you need to break them down, but this breaking down is not going to happen in one shot. First, this polysaccharide will be broken down to more disaccharide, trisaccharide, and then finally to the monosaccharide level. So similarly, proteins. The final product is going to be amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Amino acids. But if the protein is partially digested,
Ma'am,
what am I
peptone.
going to get? Yes, Lavanya?
Ma'am, peptone.
Peptones and polypeptides, oligopeptides. In general, a protein is made up of polypeptide, a very long chain of peptide bonds. But if you break it partially, then smaller peptide lengths are obtained and they are known as oligopeptides. So oligo is always going to be smaller than the polypeptide, and ultimately amino acid is the smallest unit which makes protein. So we cannot go any further than this, and by this I mean the complete digestion. Now let's talk about fats. So when we ingest fats,
Fatty
then
acids and glycerol.
fatty acids and glycerol is the ultimate product, because due to that linkage, triglyceride linkage, fats are created. So, of course, fatty acids and glycerol will be produced. So, why this, children? I mean complete digestion. And anything before this, if you are getting disaccharide, if you are getting oligopeptide, or some shorter chains of fatty acids, no, that is partial digestion, not the complete digestion. And remember, our food will not be completely digested either in the mouth or in the stomach. Its final and complete digestion will take place in the small intestine, and
Small
it is,
intestine.
yes, and it is going to take place in a stepwise manner. So remember the concept of optimum pH. Every biological enzyme requires its own particular pH, and it is the job of the secretory juices or particular acids to maintain that pH so that the enzyme can now work. So now we are about to learn what are the structures present in our buccal cavity. Is this clear so far? Any questions, children?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, it's clear.
All
No,
right.
ma'am.
So once you are eating something, children, what do you do? What is the first thing? Suppose you have an apple in your hand. What will you do?
Mom will ingest it in our mouth and will chew it.
Sorry, ma'am, what were you saying?
I am asking, if you have an apple or guava in your hands, what will be your next action?
Ma'am, we will eat
Ma'am, we
it.
will bite it. Yes, ma'am, we will eat it. We will eat it.
Okay, so
Ma'am,
first you will
we
actually take a bite of it, right?
eat it.
Bite it.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
who is going to
Yes,
bite
ma'am.
that? With which structure do you bite that apple?
Teeth.
Ma'am,
Teeth.
teeth.
Ma'am,
Yes.
oral.
So in the buccal cavity, children, we have teeth. All right. And depending upon the various functions that we need to do with our teeth, the teeth are of different types. So for example, once you are taking this bite, you are utilizing the front two teeth for this purpose. So those are incisors.
Scissors.
Incisors. And then for, especially for carnivorous organisms, they need to tear apart their food. For this we have these pointy ones, canines. So we also
Nice.
have canines. And then the grinding machinery kind of teeth start, which are known as
Molar
premolars
and molar.
and molars.
Premolars.
I will show you in a moment how do they look like. Premolars and molar teeth. Now remember, children, the number of incisors, canines, premolars and molar are definite for a particular species, and in babies which are younger than 6 years, you will generally not find the molar teeth. You will only find incisors, canines and premolar. Let us learn about their numbers. So, incisors will be 2, canines will be 1. I'm telling in which position am I talking about. Premolars 2 and molar teeth 3. And
Ma'am,
I'm
three.
talking, About, yes, Abha?
No, ma'am, nothing.
Okay. So this side, it represents this. And now we have four such sides. This, this half and this half. So to get the total number of teeth, you need to multiply it by 4. That gives us 8 canines, 8 incisors, 4 canines, 8 premolars and 12 molar teeth. If you add them up, how many do we get?
32. Ma'am, 32.
32.
32. And that's how in the adult human mouth, 32 teeth are supposed to be present. But generally, the last set of molars, either in the lower jaw or in the upper jaw, it takes time to appear. So that's why it is also known as wisdom tooth, because it appears in the very old people also, and old people are supposedly more wise as compared to the younger ones. So that's why the last molars, which take a longer time to appear, they are known as wisdom tooth. Now these teeth have following functions. Remember that. Holding your food tightly. In case of dogs, you might have seen these dogs or wolves. They just hold on to the trouser or to the leg of the person, and they don't let go. And this is the basic instinct, children. If you let go your prey, how you are going to eat it? So first you need to hold your prey, then you need to take a bite from it, then you need to tear apart if the size is too big, and then you will chew it. So according to these different functions, we have different type of teeth in our mouth. The second very important structure is,
Tongue.
now, this is absolutely essential. Why? Because it is very muscular, it is mobile, and it helps in collecting the food throughout the buccal cavity so that it can be properly chewed upon, mixed with the salivary juices, and ultimately it is the tongue which helps in pushing the food towards the pharynx and esophagus area. Whenever you eat something next time, you feel that motion, that I didn't realize it before, but when it is time to swallow, it is my tongue which is helping the food to get down. So now, tongue, it is a very highly muscular structure, and it also bears taste buds. Various taste buds are present on it, right? But I said that tongue is going to mix the food with something. What is that something?
Ma'am,
There
Ma'am,
comes,
saliva.
saliva. Ma'am,
yes.
saliva.
So
Ma'am,
now
saliva.
come salivary glands into the picture. Salivary glands. Now they are paired structures, remember, and that is not just one pair. There will be multiple pairs of salivary gland present in your mouth, some in the cheek area, some above or below the jaws, and some one pair below your tongue. So those salivary glands have a very, very critical function, children. Now let us see what are they going to do. I just told you that every enzyme requires a certain pH to work in that range, and then it will be most active at that optimum pH. So salivary glands secrete saliva, and you must have observed that the amount of saliva that we produce is quite something. We keep swallowing it so we don't realize, but it is quite some amount. And in that saliva, what are the constituents? So the major constituents of saliva
Ma'am,
are,
enzymes.
yeah,
Enzymes,
mucus
mucus.
plus
Enzymes and ions.
which enzyme particularly?
Ma'am, Thailand.
Salivary amylase.
Very good. Somebody said ptyalin, somebody said
Yes, ma'am,
salivary
ptyalin is also.
amylase. Both are synonyms for this enzyme only, and certain ions like chloride ions.
Ma'am, ma'am, H2O.
Chloride, ma'am, sodium ion acetate.
So now why am I telling you all this? That saliva is the juice that is secreted abundantly. But this enzyme will be present in that juice in very minute amounts, because enzymes are very effective biological molecules, and their amount is required in very little quantity. So This bulk secretion is saliva, which is mostly the mucus part and ions, but the amylase or the ptyalin enzyme is present in a very minute quantity. All it requires is its optimum pH where it will be working most efficiently. So what is the optimum pH of salivary amylase, children? It
6.7.
yeah, so
6.7.
6.7 to 6.8 is something that your ptyalin or salivary amylase loves. Okay, and now one trick question. So suppose you are eating roti and potato curry, simple components. Then as soon as you put it inside your mouth, your saliva is going to secrete all this and amylase will start working on the carbohydrate part of your food. But suppose you are also consuming salad which is laden with the lemon juice. Your salad contains a lot of lemon juice. So now, is your salivary amylase going to be as effective as it should be? Think.
Mom, it will work only the on the mom carbohydrates. Like it's not
Ma'am, it
gonna
will
work
not
on
work on the lime juice.
the
It
Yes,
will
ma'am.
do
salad
its
and
work.
yes,
Mhm.
mom, because it particularly digests carbohydrates and
Yes,
Ma'am,
mom
ma'am.
it will
converts
be
into
slow process.
maltose.
I guess it will slow down.
Now there comes the answer. See, its substrate specificity will not change, children. It will be always digesting carbohydrates. If it is an amylase category enzyme, it is only going to digest the carbohydrates. But to work efficiently, it had required 6.7 pH. But as soon as you put lemon juice in your mouth, now the entire buccal cavity is pretty acidic. Lemon juice is a very strong acid. All the sour juices are pretty acidic in nature. And I said that your salad contains abundant quantities of lemon juice, so which means that your saliva is not enough to maintain 6.7 there. Now your buccal cavity has become acidic. And in that acidic pH, ptyalin is not going to be as effective as it should have been, right? So, in those conditions, children, the carbohydrate digestive activity will not be as effective as is expected. Understood? So, that is why I had told you this concept of optimum pH that you need to keep in mind. The enzyme is there, but is the surrounding situation favorable for that enzyme to work or not? And that's why. So, yes, many children are confused that if the lime juice contains carbohydrate, it will digest it. No, to do that function, your enzyme needs to be active first, and in the acidic condition, it will not be. Is this concept understood now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so please keep this in mind and please keep both the names in mind. Ptyalin is another name for salivary amylase. And if I remove this prefix salivary, amylases are enzymes which are carbohydrate digesting enzymes. Remember this. So you must be wondering now if the buccal cavity contains this enzyme, is all my carbohydrate digested? It is partially digested. And let me tell you what happens to the carbohydrate of your roti or rice. So, once you are chewing your food and you are mixing it with the saliva, your ptyalin is working on it and complex carbohydrate which is mostly starch in wheat or rice. Now that starch is broken down to maltose. Now
Maltose.
Maltose.
yeah, and maltose, tell me children, is it a
It's a
monosaccharide?
disaccharide.
Yes, it is disaccharide. So this is not the complete digestion, but this is partial digestion. Okay, partial digestion, and also only 30% of the total carbohydrate that you are putting in your mouth gets converted to maltose. Because imagine children, enzymes need some time to work upon your substrate. But how long will you keep the food inside your mouth? Honestly tell me, how many seconds do you chew your food in your mouth?
10 to 15 to 20 seconds.
मैम 5
15
to
to 20
6
is very
नहीं मैम
ideal,
इतना तो नहीं
but
जाता।
इतनी देर तो कोई नहीं
10 to
करता बेटा,
15.
right?
मैम हम तो तुरंत
Ma'am,
डालते
5
हैं
to
और
10
घोट भी जाते हैं।
seconds.
So, and that's why, children, that's why it is always recommended, even when we did not know any science behind it, your parents, grandparents, grandparents have told you to chew your food properly, because some 30% of the carbohydrate has to be digested in your mouth. Let the digestion process begin, and then once it slides down your esophagus, then the digestion properly happens afterwards. If you don't chew your food properly, then all the work has to be done by your stomach, and your stomach doesn't have teeth for that. So think now, not is 15-20, at least 7-8 seconds you should really chew your food. Otherwise you are just wasting your salivary amylase. It doesn't get time to work upon your carbohydrates. And that's why, children, the age old knowledge is very essential. And just now I will tell you another age old knowledge, that we should not talk when we are eating. Why? So now the starch has been partially converted into maltose, and what has happened to the food that you have taken in? Now that food has become a slimy ball like consistency,
We called it as ballers.
and this is known as bolus.
The
Very good.
bolus.
तो आप अपने बक्कल कैविटी से जो खाना स्वालो करते हैं, अब उस पोजीशन को हम कहते हैं ये बोलस बन गया है. नॉट, वी विल नॉट बी कॉलिंग इट योर फूड और समथिंग. नाउ दिस इज बोलस, which is totally moistened, very slimy, semi solid ball like consistency, and small portions of it are going to be passed down your food pipe. So let us understand the
Ma'am,
yes, yes.
मैम लाइक मैम जब एग्जाम में मैम हमें डाइजेशन प्रोसेस को एक्सप्लेन करना होता है तो मैम हम स्टेप वाइज करते हैं। तो मैम हम क्या मैम होलोजोइक मोड में स्टेप वाइज एक्सप्लेन करेंगे या बस ऐसे डायरेक्ट लिखते जाएंगे कि इसके बाद ये होगा इसके बाद ये होगा ऐसे टाइप्स?
No, question will be very clear cut and specific. So we know that digestion process itself is very long process. So we will be very specific in which chamber we are talking about it, or we can ask that if in the stomach conditions are this, pH is this, temperature is this, what do you think will be digested, what do you think will not be digested? So you have to use your brains. The complete digestion process will not come. In Holozoic, if complete digestion is asked, maybe then we can ask amoeba, nutrition in amoeba, because there we are not having many chambers of the alimentary canal.
That's what
It
I
is
was
just the food
thinking.
vacuole where the food will be digested. So if we
Yes,
want the
ma'am.
complete process from ingestion to egestion, we will be citing amoeba. If I want certain details of a particular step of human digestion, then the question will be asked like that. Complete digestion, we know nobody is going to attempt that in the examination 3 hours. So we design questions very specifically. Don't worry about that.
Okay, ma'am.
All right. Now let us move on to the second important chamber, which is esophagus. Now, esophagus is also known as, children, food pipe. What it is known as? Food pipe. And
Food pipe.
Food pipe.
do you have your diagrams with you? I am also going to show you, but if you have your diagram of the digestive system with you, please look at it. So the second one that I am going to talk about is esophagus. But esophagus leads from where? I had told you that the nasal chamber and the oral chamber both lead to a common place, and that is known as, very good, pharynx. So after the pharynx, this food pipe and your windpipe, which is trachea, both are going to segregate. So they had a common chamber before. Now the two tubes are going to segregate. One is going to be responsible for food, one is going to be responsible for the air that we breathe. And if there is not an opening and closing, then there are chances that sometimes the food particle might get into the windpipe, and that
Windpipe.
would be life threatening. Choking. You have heard about choking? That's what choking is. Sometimes when you are eating, आप कहते हैं बहुत तेज खांसी आती है और आप कहते हैं लगता है खाना सरक गया. क्या होता है वो? That is choking, children. When by chance tiny particles of food enter the windpipe, which should never ever happen. So we have a very protective structure just above the windpipe. Suppose this is your windpipe, and parallel to this is running your esophagus, and they had a common opening before. So here we are going to have a cartilaginous flap-like structure. This cartilaginous flap-like structure will be absolutely closed when you are swallowing a food through esophagus, and when you are breathing, then this will be open so that the air can enter this tube, which is windpipe. And next time you eat, you feel this, that when you are taking the air in, you cannot eat at that time, and that's why we cannot even talk when we have food in our mouth. We say, because for talking you need to inhale air, and that is not possible with the food in your mouth. Now have you understood the basis why your parents tell you not to talk while you are eating? Because there are chances that the food might enter this windpipe, which is the choking condition. This should be prevented at any cost, children. So let us understand how the food is going to pass down the esophagus. Now, do you have you seen rubber pipe through which we water our plants, children?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So, I'm asking you this hypothetical. You can do it at your home also. If you have this rubber pipe and I'm crushing a piece of paper, making a small ball of it, and I'm trying to push that ball of paper through the pipe. So, what do you think? Is it going to slide down one point to the next point in a moment, or do I need to push it? How will it go down? Tell me.
Mom, you need to push it.
We need to push it.
Yes, ma'am. We need to push
We
it.
need to
Okay.
push it.
And we need to push it.
Yeah, so I will be slowly pushing it, so it will reach perhaps here. Then I will pinch the pipe, it will reach perhaps here. Then here I will pinch again, so it will reach here, and that is how it has to go down. It cannot slide down in one go, tuck. No, this is not biological systems work. And exactly this happens when the bolus is sliding down the esophagus. It will not go down tapak and reach the stomach. No, it has to go in a very systematic and slow manner. So we are not there to pinch the food pipe. This is going to happen automatically because the walls of esophagus can contract, and that rhythmic contraction like this.
Peristalsis.
Yeah,
Ma'am,
suppose,
peristalsis movement.
very good. So suppose this is the bolus, this is the food pipe. This will contract and this area will relax. So the food will now come here. Now this area will contract while the further area will relax. Now the food will come a little more down, and that is how through the rhythmic contraction relaxation, the food travels down the esophagus. So this is known as, children, peristalsis, or this movement is known as peristaltic movement. So now you have seen that in the esophagus area, no digestion process has taken place, only the passage of food has occurred from where? From buccal cavity to the destination. Now what is the destination where the food is reaching now?
Stomach. Ma'am, stomach.
Stomach.
Yes,
Stomach.
the third one is going to be stomach. Right? So now we will see what happens in the stomach area, and then I will call it a day. So first let us reach stomach and see what are the enzymes, what are those conditions, and what is going to be digested over there. Now children, Suppose this is the stomach. Okay, it is a bag like structure, of course, and this is also the place where the food will remain for the longest time, almost 3 to 4 hours. In your mouth, you did not even keep it for 3 to 4 seconds, but in your stomach, you can't help it. The food will stay here for almost 3 to 4 hours. And now, this tube which is leading towards the stomach, this is our esophagus. So we need to actually guard this opening, and we also need to guard this exit point because we don't want food to leave this chamber before 4 hours. And we absolutely cannot afford that the food goes back into the esophagus. Why? Because,
Ma-
yes,
because to avoid the backward movement of food, because that can actually be threatening for us, and the digestion will not complete.
no, digestion will not be complete. Very good answer. But it will also destroy the lining of the food pipe. Let me give you one example. You all must have vomited at least once or twice in your lifetime, right?
Whenever I
Yes,
travel, I
ma'am.
do
Yes, ma'am.
vomit.
Yes. So, whenever we are undergoing vomiting, we feel some burning sensation afterwards. Have you felt that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Very
ma'am.
often, and in nose also.
Yeah. So why this happens, children? Because the stomach contains HCl, and the overall pH of the stomach area when the food is about to be digested will become 1.5 to 2, highly acidic. And imagine if that kind of food travels back from this point into the esophagus area, it is going to damage the lining of the esophagus, and that is the burning situation we will feel. So we absolutely cannot afford any backflow kind of situation. So what happens, children? All these chambers of the digestive system are highly muscular, and there are muscular sphincters. Sphincters. Sphincters are such kind of muscular junctions which can contract and relax, and that's how they can decrease or increase the diameter of any tubular area. So sphincter muscles will contract once the bolus has reached the stomach, and they will remain contracted so that this passage is closed and the food cannot go back to the esophagus. So this sphincter is your gastroesophageal sphincter. Why? Because the stomach in scientific terms is known as gastro or gastric. And from where is this coming? Esophagus. So this is your
Gastroesophageal sphincter.
gastroesophageal sphincter. Sphincter muscles have this ability that they can reduce or increase the
Contract.
diameter. Yes. Now the food is here. That food which was called as bolus has entered the stomach. Now let us learn about stomach a little bit more. So I said that this is a very highly muscular structure, children. Very thick and muscles which can contract. So peristalsis, remember, is not only limited to the esophagus, it is going to take place here also. And let me remind you, you have felt it. Whenever we are hungry or we are afraid, we feel butterflies in our stomach. Have you felt that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
It happened.
That
Yes,
is
ma'am.
your stomach walls churning. And imagine if the food is here and the food needs to be mixed with enzymes, then there is no tongue over here. The stomach wall needs to contract and relax, churn the food very well so that it can be mixed with enzymes, and then the digestion will happen efficiently. So it is a very highly and thick muscular structure. Now what it has got to secrete? The major secretions will come from gastric
Gastric glands.
glands. Gastric means stomach. So gastric glands which are embedded in the muscular lining of the stomach, they are going to secrete something. Let us see what. So we have got gastric glands here. and they secrete a large quantity of thick mucus, first of all,
H- Mucus,
Mucus,
HCl,
HCl, and enzymes
and
like
then
pepsin.
and ma'am
HCl,
pepsinogen and
and then
prorenin.
Enzymes like pepsin.
Pepsinogen and prorenin.
yeah, actually, we are not taking the inactive state here into consideration. We'll talk about that in 11th. But in nutshell, these three major secretions are coming from the gastric glands. Gastric means stomach. So remember, stomach में HCl होता है, stomach को gastric कहते हैं, तो जरूर gastric gland इसे secrete कर रही है. So mucus की मैंने कहा large quantities are required. Why, children? Any idea?
Ma'am, to protect the inner lining of stomach from the action of HCl
And pepsin also, because see
and
children,
pepsinogen.
all the HCl is going to be secreted here, and it is highly acidic in the range of 1.5 to 2 pH. That HCl is good enough to corrode any animal tissue or plant tissue. So we need to make sure that a very thick layer of mucus is present throughout the gastric lining. Also, pepsin is a protein digesting enzyme, and our muscles contain a lot of protein. So, if pepsin gets hold of these lining cells, it will digest that also. So we need to make sure that our stomach lining is protected from HCl as well as pepsin. And how to do that? Just secrete a very thick layer of mucus so that enzymes cannot penetrate that layer and reach to the cells. And you have seen one example of this in class 9th children. In case of peptic ulcer, what happens that the bacterium Helicobacter pylori damages the stomach wall. At certain places, this lining is damaged, and that's why whatever we are eating, we feel that burning situation, that unpleasantness in our stomach, because now that mucus lining is damaged at certain places, and all the secretions of the stomach are actually damaging our cells, and that produces the pain in your stomach. So peptic ulcers are caused by that bacterium Helicobacter, but the after effect is this only, that the lining of stomach is damaged at certain places, and that gives rise to pain. So you can imagine that the tiny damage caused by a bacterium gives so much pain. What if there was no mucus present? That situation cannot be imagined, and nature ensures all these things in advance. That's why we have bulk of mucus being secreted. So the job of mucus is clear to us now. Why is this here? The function of HCl will be to kill the germs, because जितने भी wild animals हैं, yes please,
Ma'am, I was
Mom, it
saying
kills the
that they,
germs and activates the medium for the enzymes to
yeah,
work.
yeah.
yes, ma'am, for pepsin to act.
So it has three major functions, children, to kill the germs of everything that we are putting inside our body. So that might or might not be very clean. But once it comes in contact with the HCl, all the germs will be deactivated and killed. Second function of HCl is to soften the harder parts. You remember there are animals which swallow their whole food or major chunks of it. So there comes bone part as well. So HCl will soften the hard parts of your food. And ultimately, HCl will provide that optimum pH at which this enzyme is going to work best. So pepsin requires highly acidic condition, and it also becomes activated in the acidic environment. So that pH of 1.5 to 2 is going to ensure both of these activities. So gastric glands ensure that the food is well moistened as well as the gastric lining is protected. HCl will provide optimum conditions for pepsin enzyme to work, and pepsin is the protein digesting enzyme over here. So one thing is clear, the bottom line is that proteins are only partially digested in the stomach. So if I say that proteins are partially digested, then I have not reached the amino acid level. I have only come down to the oligopeptide. Suppose this was a long chain of polypeptide, then I have only broken down to certain extent. Now these are my oligopeptides. I need to further digest them to amino acid level, but that will happen in the small intestine. Now in the stomach, the major digestive process that has happened is digestion of protein and complete churning and mixing of the food with the digestive enzymes of the stomach. And now, the term which is given to this mass of food is anyone?
Kind.
Chyme. Chyme. Now, once the food is in the stomach, mixed with the secretions of gastric gland, then it is known as chyme, and chyme is containing partially digested proteins and almost 30% partially digested carbohydrate that we digested in the buccal cavity. Now the food has to enter the small intestine. You can see that there is another junction, and this is
Pyloric
called.
sphincter.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am.
Pyloric sphincter.
After completion of food digestion in the stomach, now this sphincter, which is children pyloric sphincter, this is going to relax, increase the diameter, and the food will start entering small intestine. Now, small intestine is further divided into three parts, and the major part or the initial part where the digestion takes place is
Duodenum.
duodenum, and we will take up that in the next lecture. But so far, you should remember that what all has been digested when the food or the chyme is leaving stomach. Only certain amount of carbohydrates and certain portion of protein which is going to the oligopeptide level, not to the amino acid level. So this is all for today. Now if you have any questions children, you can ask. Yes, anyone?
Ma'am, what type of logical questions can be made from this?
A
Can
little
you explain?
louder? Hmm?
Ma'am, what is chyme?
Chyme is the term given to the food when it is in the stomach. What happens in the stomach? It is mixed with the secretions of gastric glands. So after that, stomach wall is going to churn it, mix it, and when it has become that semi-solid state, which is containing gastric secretions, HCl, pepsin, mucus, that form of the food is known as chyme. So the term when the food is leaving the buccal cavity is bolus. The term when the food is leaving stomach is chyme. It is just according to the physical state and its extent of digestion, we give these different terms to the food to segregate and understand, okay, if it is in the chyme stage, now it is reaching the small intestine and so on. Clear?
Ma'am, is
Yes,
it
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
necessity to
Alright,
also?
so I will call it a day now. Please revise everything till this part. If you have any doubt, you can ask me through WhatsApp, and we will proceed from digestion in duodenum from the next lecture. So please understand the basic functions of pancreas, gallbladder and liver. These are your major digestive glands after the salivary gland. So just go through it once. It will help you in understanding, and we will start from this point in the next class. All of you are free to leave now. Those who have any doubts, they can stay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Welcome.
Thank
ma'am.
you, ma'am. Have a
Thank you,
nice day.
ma'am.
Yeah, all of you have a nice day. Same to you children. Kanish, do you have any doubt? All right.